Up until about 10 years ago, God Hand just wasn't very well known. And with the advent of difficult games becoming more popular and more accepted, as well as YouTube giving people money to play games that no one's really ever heard of, it's finally getting the recognition it deserves. However, most of the time you hear people talking about God Hand is when they discuss normal mode, because that's the mode that most people will play. Maybe easy as well, but normal is the more accepted one because it's the default option. In fact, you don't even have the hard difficulty mode unlocked until you beat the game one time. Then it's unlocked. That means someone has to play normal, beat the game, and want to play it again on a harder difficulty. It does make sense though, because normal has a dynamic difficulty, which will change based on how good the player is doing. If you're doing a good job, it will get harder. If you're doing a bad job, it will get easier. It's fair to say that that makes the game a little bit more balanced. Then people who are new to the game can come in and not feel like they are completely overwhelmed. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about hard mode, a completely different beast, something that you can't just go and play and do fine at. In fact, it doesn't matter how many times you've beaten normal or practiced. It is its own thing, and you must go in head first and learn directly from those hard mode enemies. Otherwise, you're never going to figure out how to fight them. And actually, there's a lot that makes the difficulty mode as hard as it is, and it's why I'm considering it to be the hardest hard mode out there. So let's start with the first section I want to talk about, which is the base game and how it actually makes the game more difficult the way they set things up. God Hand is a fighting game mixed with a 3D beat 'em up, where the camera follows directly behind your character and it is tank controls, which does make it seem a little more difficult, but honestly the whole focus of the game is who is right in front of you, and if you need to see what's around you, you use a minimap or turn your character around. The camera being right behind you also helps you start to get an understanding of spacing, which is an important thing in fighting games. Because the camera is always fixed in this position, you'll be able to finally figure out how to space yourself from an enemy to hit them when they cannot hit you. The game is essentially giving you hitboxes you can damage your enemies with and telling you to go do it. It also gives the enemies hitboxes to damage you with and tells them go do it. That is why spacing is so important, because your hitboxes extend in different directions and at different heights, as well as the enemies, so you must account for all of these things, and it's very player driven. You get to figure out where those hitboxes are and how to get out of the way, or where those hitboxes are on your character and how to put them on the enemy. It doesn't just end there though, because the game also determines the frame data for your attacks. While you are in the menu selecting your moves, on the right side you can see a preview of the main character Jean using those moves. Not only does it show you what kind of damage numbers that move will use, but what the move looks like when the hit connects, where the hit connects, and any animation that goes in between, either at the beginning, at the end, or during the hit, so you know exactly how long it takes for the attack to happen. Using the spacing and frame data will help you figure out how to attack your enemies in the smartest way possible. Just like in a fighting game, if you were fighting a real person, you'd want to know all of your opponent's moves and what your moves do. For a very quick example, if your opponent uses a punch that takes 6 frames to activate and do damage at a certain spot, if you have a kick that activates in 5 frames, obviously yours is going to connect first. So if you think they're going to use that punch, you'd want to use this kick, which happens a little bit quicker, stopping their attack, getting damage on them, and probably setting them up for a combo. This is exactly how it works in God Hand. If you can do that very thing to your enemies, you can get out on top. The whole point of this is that it makes the game much more about mastery of the basics and understanding how those things work together so that you can come out on top. I mean, this is the kind of thing you want. You want to feel like everything is in your hands. There was never something that was so out of your control that it felt cheap or unfair. The best part of this is that there is no specific move or thing you need to do to get out of the way or damage your enemy. You get to choose for yourself by looking through the list of moves and finding something you like that you understand and then doing that thing. In fact, since every enemy has different attack patterns, all the bosses do, you can go through at any time by pressing start and changing any of your moves in any order you wish, right on the fly, right before you start your combo even. You can just go do it because you know that you have a better chance if you get to choose what happens next. The base game is complex and it does take some time to get used to and learn, and it takes even longer to master. This is in contrast to a lot of modern games nowadays that do a couple things that will make it easier for the player to just press a few buttons and feel like they're doing a lot. A feature like sucking in, where it sucks your character into the enemy even if you're a little too far away for your attack. That makes it much easier for someone to not have to judge the spacing, and the game just kind of says, okay, if you press X, you're going to hit this guy, we'll get you there, so that you don't have to try that hard. And while that's not a good or a bad thing, it's just different, and it doesn't facilitate the kind of mastery and player choice that it does in God Hand. Something you also see very often is pressing one button for anything that comes in your direction. So let's say that there's a dodge button. You press the one button at the right time and it will help you dodge out of the way of attacks. There's nothing more than just timing. You press this button at the right time and that's all you need. Again, I'm not saying that these features are bad. They do make games more accessible, and there are other features that can make a game challenging. But it's clear that in God Hand, there's just a complexity you don't see very often nowadays, and I really wish that we'd see it more often. Next, I want to talk about the difficulty, because there isn't just one choice of difficulty in this game, easy, normal, or hard. There is an in-game difficulty that changes based on how well you're doing. Like I said, in normal mode, you can go from level 1, 2, 3, or 4, which 4 is named Dai. Since the Japanese word for 4 is so close to death, they just called it level Dai, which is kind of cool. The problem is that this dynamic difficulty does not matter in hard mode because you are stuck on one difficulty level, which is level Dai. Now, the interesting thing about this is that that difficulty level is already in the game in normal mode. It's just not something you will see very often. In fact, many new players will never see it. I mean, getting hit once will knock you out of it if you get there, and at level 3, it's very difficult because each of the levels comes with its own modifiers for the enemies. These modifiers are not simply health and damage modifiers, which is something you see in a lot of games. When you go up in a difficulty, they'll just add more health and damage to the enemies. Instead, enemies will get faster, attack in groups, attack off camera, be able to counterattack, have resistances to some of the special properties on all of your attacks, and they will have extra attacks and even extra enemy spawns. Being on this difficulty literally means that the game has told the enemies, go murder this person, and that is it. They are not there for a challenge. They are there to kill you. You have to figure out how not to die to the insane amount of things enemies can do. Now, please don't think I believe all of it is balanced. It doesn't necessarily facilitate balance in this section. It is supposed to be hard. I mean, that's the whole point of picking the difficulty. It doesn't unlock until you beat normal mode, and honestly, normal feels like the intended way to play the game. It doesn't have to be, but it definitely feels that they spent a lot of time setting up this difficulty curve, this dynamic difficulty, so that the player can do it at their own pace. Whereas hard mode is just, here is all the hardest things in the game, go do them. This section is a little more simple and short because it tells you exactly what's going to happen. Everything else around it is what you'll need to do, but this itself makes the game difficult because they haven't just set up a hard difficulty with its own modifiers. This stuff is baked into the game. Enemies having extra attacks. Now, they are consistent throughout the game. You'll see all of these attacks on hard mode because you're always on this level. Their attacks are faster, so you have to be faster yourself. Enemies will attack you in groups, so now you must crowd control. This makes it much more difficult because the things you learned in normal mode aren't necessarily going to carry over to hard mode. You will have to learn new strategies and find new ways to approach enemies everywhere. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the advanced techniques that you'll need to learn a bit about to even complete hard mode. Now I won't go too in depth on them. This isn't necessarily about teaching you how to handle hard mode, but what it takes to handle hard mode, because this demonstration of the things you need to learn is fairly overwhelming and the speed at which it happens in-game is brilliant. The first and arguably most important thing you're going to learn is the dodge feature, which sounds more like a basic game function, which is something I should have talked about earlier, but really it isn't, because you'll have to learn how to do it for hard mode way differently than you used in normal mode. Using the right analog stick, you can do a back dodge, which is a backflip, a left or right dodge, which will slide your character left and right, and an up dodge, which will allow you to dodge on the spot and can spam it. Each of these has a different set of iframes and works a little differently throughout the entire game. The back dodge is very popular with new players because it both spaces you out and gives you some iframes and allows you to get your bearings because you've moved away from the enemy. However, it is not always the dodge you'll want to use. In fact, doing your up dodge is probably the most helpful one for many different reasons other than just dodging attacks. But dodging is so utterly important for doing many things in the game. It's not just about avoiding damage. One of the important uses of dodging can be dodge canceling, an intended feature of the game. When you are attacking, you can at any point dodge in any direction and cancel your attack at any point. That means right before the attack hits or right after the attack hits. This can help you both avoid damage you'll take if your attack is too slow and you realize too late, but you can still dodge out of it and get safe. Or you can use it directly after an attack lands and then start another attack even quicker depending on which attack you cancel. Two popular ways to dodge cancel are for your guard break. At the end of a guard break, it does take a couple seconds for the animation to end and allow you to do anything else. If you immediately dodge after your attack connects, I mean the second that attack connects, you can begin doing other stuff right away, which will allow you to, if you either miss the guard break, come out of it and do something else, or after you successfully guard break someone, start doing your combo right away. And the second popular option for dodge canceling is going to be your high sidekick, which begins on the X button at the beginning of the game, and something you probably won't want to get rid of throughout the rest of your gameplay through hard mode, because the high sidekick comes with a special property, something I'll quickly mention shortly after this. It comes with the property to launch enemies away from you. And to launch enemies away from you means that they can also hit walls. If you hit them with your kick and they hit a wall, they take a lot of extra damage because, well, you've kicked them and they've hit a wall. But the special thing you can do is if you are right up against a wall and you kick, the second your kick connects, if you up dodge and begin another high side kick, you can continuously loop someone against the wall. It does take a little bit to understand the timing, but it is there and you can absolutely do this to many enemies in the game. It may seem like this is a cheesy way to handle the game, but let me tell you what, it is intended and the game knows it because enemies will try to escape it. It's hard to keep them in the loop, and if you can do it, good for you. Don't worry though, because it's still not going to help you so much that you can complete hard mode just using that. It's not possible. Aside from dodge canceling, you can also just reposition yourself for crowd control, or just because enemies are right on top of you, and this is very helpful. As I said before, this difficulty really has enemies surrounding you at all times if there are more than one or two enemies. They will come at you from every direction and try to beat the crap out of you. So repositioning yourself by back dodging out of the way and finding a better spot to fight from, or using the left and right dodge just to keep enemies from being right behind you, is invaluable. Okay, I said I would mention move properties, and I will right here. Moves come with different properties. In the menu, you will see what moves come with what properties, and if there is nothing there, most likely all it does is do damage. If it does come with a property, then you can use that to your advantage. Properties like juggling, or guard breaking, or launching enemies. These are all things that will help you stop groups of enemies or do specific things when you're in a fight. Guard breaking is pretty clear. You break someone's guard and then they are staggered and you can do crap to them. Juggling an enemy will send them straight up in the air for you to do some other special moves against, like your fixed up and down triangle moves. Your down triangle will do a huge uppercut, and your up triangle will do a jumping kick that will hit groups of enemies in front of you. You also have launching enemies, which will launch them away from you, which means that you can send enemies flying into walls, get them out of the way if there's too many enemies, or send enemies into each other to send multiple enemies away and hurt all of them. Understanding when to use the moves with these properties is, again, invaluable, and you don't want too many of them. You want to focus on one of each, and you do not want to have those moves inside of your combos, because your combos are meant to do damage, and then your other face buttons that you would map those moves to are meant to help you in those situations. It's really good to set them up this way so that you can do everything you need to do in a fight and cover all your bases. The next thing I'll talk about is crowd control, something that IGN's 3 out of 10 review said didn't exist in this game, and it absolutely does, but the game doesn't really tell the player, so you'd be forgiven for not understanding what to do, because it's not just one move or one thing you do. You must do multiple things. You must both launch enemies, reposition yourself, and use your fixed moves to your advantage. Now, your fixed moves are moves, like I said earlier, an up and down triangle when someone is up in the air. There's also an up triangle move when someone's on the ground to do a heal drop. You've also got pushing the right analog stick up to up dodge and then immediately pressing triangle, which will have you do a sweep. These moves are very helpful for controlling crowds, and the biggest way to control a crowd is to launch an enemy into other enemies. 2 ways that you can start by doing this is by beginning with a charged punch. If you press down in triangle, that is mapped to a charged punch, which is an uppercut, which will send enemies up into the air. Now you can do one of 2 things. Depending on how high you send an enemy up in the air, you can either use your high side kick with an X immediately after just to kick them away. Now they will hit other enemies, they might not take them down, but they will hit them and at least knock them out of what they're doing. The second one is if you send an enemy high enough in the air, that's where you can activate your fixed up and down triangle. Now your down triangle can hit multiple enemies in front of you with this big huge uppercut and it will deal damage. However, on hard mode, enemies will easily jump out of this unless they are dizzied or stunned in the first place, and you can get a couple off before they leave this state. But it's not always admissible to just let that happen, so you want to learn how long or how many times you can do that uppercut before it's not viable anymore. The other one you can do is the up triangle, which will hit a large area in front of you, even if the enemy isn't up in the air. The original enemy has to be up in the air to even activate it, but if there's an enemy on the ground in front of you, you'll kick him as well, and you'll send them flying so hard, they'll all fly as far away from you as they can and hit whatever wall in the distance there is. So you'll want walls way far in the distance so that you can get enemies out of the way. This isn't simple though, because sometimes you just aren't positioned in a way that will allow you to kick an enemy into other enemies. So what you'll have to do is get used to knocking someone up in the air and dodging left or right to get them to face the other enemies. This is why repositioning is helpful. This is why knocking them up in the air is helpful, and paying attention to where enemies are, where the walls are, where your back is, if you're surrounded. All of these things are very, very helpful. The last thing, but probably not actually the last thing, just the last thing here I'll talk about here, is the enemy states. There are 3 things that you'll want to pay attention to that you'll want to be able to do to enemies. 2 of them are the dizzy and stun state. When you dizzy or stun an enemy by either breaking a guard or hitting them enough times, they'll become dizzy or stunned, allowing you to knock them up in the air and position yourself to do crowd control, or do a combo, or do a special pummel technique. The circle button isn't used for anything but picking things up or activating pummels. Pummels happen when an enemy is dizzied, and you can grab them with the circle button and then jam on all the face buttons. Although there are a few you don't have to jam on any face buttons, it is a simple one press and it will do in a move, but these moves will be helpful to isolate yourself from other enemies and grab one to do damage, because once you begin a pummel, you are invincible. So that means you can use it to get out of an enemy attack. If they are starting to attack, you just press it on someone else nearby and you'll be invincible during that time. Some of these pummels will also allow you to hit multiple enemies if they're close enough. They've got to be pretty close though, and it's really helpful to have happen, but it's not something you'll always be able to set up, so don't try too hard to set it up. It's mostly just used to do the damage and maybe get out of damage. So the pummels are helpful. Stunning and dizzying your enemies will obviously take them out of combat and allow you to set them up. But the other state is a critical hit, and when an enemy is in the middle of an attack, winding up an attack, just at the end of attack, you can actually hit them with one of your own for a critical strike. Now, depending on what move you use, if it is a normal move that just does damage, it will do extra damage, and it will stop them momentarily, allowing you to begin your own combo. However, if your move has a property, like a launch or a juggle, it will do that double. Now, they also take double damage during a critical hit, so this is why it's important. If you knock them up with a juggle, any kind of juggle hit will immediately send them high enough for one of your fixed moves. Any kind of launch attack will send them flying into the closest wall, doing double damage. This is really helpful to learn because enemies all have move patterns that you can somewhat rely on consistently, and you can figure out what move you have that interrupts it and sends them flying or stops them and does damage. So it's invaluable to learn the enemy patterns, their attack patterns, even when you're in the middle of a crowd and it's kind of hard to tell, because it will help you immensely to get one of them out of there. Or enemies nearby someone who takes a critical hit sometimes get knocked back a little bit, so they won't be doing anything. They'll kind of be stunned from like, oh, what the crap happened here? And that's very helpful in the group. Okay, so while I said this was not here to teach you how to do these things, you now at least know they exist, and it's something that you can do yourself when you play through hard mode. But just so you know, all of these things I just told you happen in a matter of seconds in combat. You must figure all of these things out in such a small time frame and with such a small margin of error that you will not be able to do it the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, the 60th, the 70th, the 80th, the 100th time you try to do them. They are so incredibly complex and difficult because they all complement each other and need each other to work. You can't just dodge cancel, you can't just crowd control, you can't just put enemy into states, because all of these things then build off of each other. You can put an enemy into a dizzy state, knock them up, reposition yourself, crowd control, but the second you're done landing from the crowd control move, you're probably surrounded still. So now you have to, dash out of there, do a sweep to stop someone else from attacking, turn around, do a backflip, start smacking someone else. You have to immediately begin these advanced techniques again after you finish one whole set of them. That's just how quick the game is. Enemies are relentless, they are powerful, and they will not stop. These are the kind of things you have to learn if you want to make it through hard mode. Okay, let's move on to another section, and this section is going to be a little bit shorter, but it's going to be very relatable to a lot of people. Have you ever said to yourself, man, I want to go back and play that game I played when I was younger. I can't wait because it's such a good game. Except for that section. A lot of people share these relatable memories with each other because there are sections in games that you remember as being just piss poor, unfun, weird, different from all the others. And this game will have those exact moments for you as you're going through, because there are some sections that are just horribly, maliciously difficult, like they knew it was going to be difficult. Two such sections for me was the second boss fight against 3 opponents. Often labeled as the Three Stooges, these 3 enemies will fight you 2 and 3 at a time during this boss fight, and you must kill all of them to finish the boss fight. At first, you're only fighting 2 of them, with the third one appearing every 30 seconds or so just to fuck with you. Once you kill one of them, she will then show up permanently to then keep the fight at 2 characters until you kill all 3 of them. The problem with this one is that they complement each other's moves so well and attack you so hard, aggressively, and with ferocity you just can't imagine. And it took so long. Hours and hours, like 4 hours of fighting these guys until I finally was able to kill them. And I used everything at my disposal. I used the roulette wheel, I used God Hand, I broke all of the crates around the arena looking for items that would help me. I threw the crates at them just for some extra damage that might not get me damaged, which is not true because if you go over and pick up a crate and they happen to do a move, they might hit you. So it's not always guaranteed. My only hope was taking one of them at the beginning of the match into the corner and trying to do a wall kick loop on him enough to get him low enough that I could then activate God Hand and kill him, eliminating one of them completely. The problem is it's still difficult with the other 2. The woman has a whip that will hit you from far away, and my god, the number of times she's able to hit you or grab you through what you're doing is insane. It feels like she's cheating, and I don't know what to do about that sometimes. Really the thing is to lure the big guy here away from her and then go attack her a few times, because she just can't, you can't leave her alive, man. You can't let her be the last one. She's just too difficult, and if she grabs you, she pretty much takes you from full health down to nothing. But the most aggravating, difficult, annoying, ridiculous section of the game comes during the Pyramid Tower section, where you must fight 4 separate groups of enemies and beat all of them before you can leave and save the game. If you die at any point, you have to start over in this tower. Most of the enemies in this group are of the bigger variety, which means it's not easy to knock them up in the air and knock them away. You will need to counter hit them up in the air to really get them to where you can do an up triangle on them to crowd control, and let me tell you what, you will need to be knocking them away to make sure you have time to fight the other ones, or you can't do it. All of the enemies in each group pop up and will relentlessly chase you down until you die. If any of them have long range attacks, they will just start doing them at random times and you have to hope you can get away from it. Especially this guy at the beginning. He has a big plasma cannon on his back that he just likes to fire at you, and if he hits you with it, you get knocked up, you take a lot of damage, and you have to stand up slowly. Sometimes not allowing you to dodge the second attack. Meaning, if you get hit once and you're in just the right position, you might as well just give up. Every single enemy, the second they are within range, will start using their attacks, which does mean that you can continuously back dodge, letting them do their attack and trying to find opportunities to attack them. However, with 3 or 4 or 5 enemies at a time attacking you, it is not easy. So the one thing that I found out that was most helpful was to bring them back and find out when to counter hit them, knock one of them up and knock them away, then try and deal with the other enemies. Some of them even carry weapons, which I didn't mention as some kind of advanced technique because, well, weapons are pretty simple. Pick it up off the ground and you press square for a small attack that does some damage and will stun an opponent a little bit, and triangle for a wide, big attack that will generally send enemies flying. You need to use these weapons realistically in a way that will help you crowd control them if you can, because you have a wind up on the triangle, which is the most useful attack to have a weapon with. You need to pick it up and use triangle to knock everyone away. In fact, if you knock them away and dash after them, you can sometimes get a hit on them before they stand all the way up, meaning you can keep them in this loop of, you can't hurt me, but I can hurt you, which is the best loop to put them in. The problem is that enemies use the weapons on you as well. In fact, the only way to get the weapons is to make them drop them by either knocking them down and having them drop them, or just hitting them enough to stun them and they drop it. And they don't always drop their weapons. They will sometimes land on the ground, get up with the weapon, and just start swinging immediately. And they will kill you very quickly. Although some of the weapons do give you very obvious opportunities to counter hit and send them flying. So if you see an enemy with an obvious counter hit weapon, just wait until they do the swing, kick them away, and deal with other people. In fact, it's probably the best thing to do because, well, you have control over them. The other enemies you might not. If you can control them enough, you can kill the other enemies and then wait for them, and you still can get some counter hits off on them. But good luck with that when 3 other enemies are also trying to murder you. I mean, seriously, this section of the game was so utterly hard. I didn't give up. Somehow, after 7 hours, almost a playthrough through normal, I spent playing that part. And I didn't give up, and I was able to do it. You will find your own sections of the game that give you immense amounts of trouble because there are just a decent amount of sections that have different bosses with different mechanics, and they won't be easy to figure out right away. In fact, you might not. You might just get lucky enough with what you're doing to eke out enough damage, using your God Hand ability and the roulette wheel just well enough to get them down. The last thing I want to mention is the experiences of some of the players who are very, very high-level players. People like Zana, who speedrun, other people like Hardcore Gamer, HymXD, Dr. Dapieta, and Crazy Boy, who do no damage runs. I mean, everyone does these challenges and speedruns, and they're very, very good at the game. They do things in this game that almost no other player can do, and it takes years of practice and mastery to understand how to perform these things, but they still have issues, and that's not to say anything against them. They are the best players at the game by far, hands down. But you just can't get away from some of the stuff that happens in this game. The amount of enemies and things coming at you sometimes just overwhelms you. No matter how much you know about the game and your knowledge of the mechanics, it happens. See, there are no portions of the game that really allow you to do enough cheesy strategies to get you through. There just aren't. There are some things that are helpful, but in the end, the best way to get through the game the fastest or the most insane is to just learn the basics, learn everything, master them. That's it. Cheesy strategies just don't really exist in this game, not in the form like other games do, where you can get through an entire game doing the same move over and over. It's just not the same here. There are no glitches or anything that you can perform that really get you through these sections. You just need to get so familiar with the game that it happens automatically for you. You know what to do in this situation. All of these reasons and all of these experiences are exactly why this game's hard mode is just unbelievably difficult. And I'm sure you have played other games yourself that are just as difficult, or you feel is just as difficult. As much as I want to explain how difficult it is here, the best way to see it in action is to go see it in action. Try it yourself. See exactly what we're talking about when we say that hard mode is an experience. Absolutely. Now, I'm sure people in the comments will talk about how other games are just as hard or harder. Don't forget that this is about hard mode. If a game like Dark Souls does not contain a hard mode, it's not part of this explanation. This is not part of this category. It needs to have a selectable hard mode. It's not a new game. Plus, it's a hard mode. Please leave those games in the comments so that I can go check them out. We can all go check them out. I want to see how hard these hard modes are. I still believe with all my heart that this game's hard mode is probably the hardest one out there, with how ridiculous it is to master things, to understand the basics, to do all of these things within seconds of seeing what happens. And I guarantee that you will go into it having just as many problems, if not more, and maybe less. But in general, anyone who picks this up will find that hard mode is just insurmountable, not possible to beat. And I almost felt the same way myself. I pushed through, but man, it was a tough one. My poor little heart, man. It's just... If you want to watch the full playthrough on the channel, I have the live version, and you can see just how much I complained. And even afterwards, I still believe this game is the best PS2 game ever made. I just love it to death, and I want to play it more, even though I practically cried my way through 7 hours of one fucking fight. And with that, I want to thank you all for watching this video. Thank you so much if you stayed all the way to the end here just to listen to how hard this game is. Leave us with some of your experiences, leave us with your disagreements or agreements. I want to hear all of them. I want to hear more, because this is just a cool aspect of gaming, is hard modes and how difficult they can be. So thank you all to the supporters of the channel, because this channel is about the PS2 console challenge and people have been requesting games. Thank you to those people also for letting me sit here for hours and hours playing hard mode instead of playing the challenge at this point. Thank you so much to everyone who is in the stream for it. Thank you everyone who has talked to me about God Hand, who helped me understand things. Zana especially, he helped me so much just talking about God Hand and watching his speedruns and listening to his explanations, looking at things he's left posted on Reddit, just information. It's so helpful. I'm sure there's more to learn about this game. And guess what? You can learn about it too. Go play God Hand, and I will see everyone later.